We continue Plutarch's Lives, translated by John Dryden, revised by Arthur Hugh Clough, by starting Aratus. The philosopher Chrysippus Polycrates quotes an ancient proverb, "Not as really it should be, apprehending. I suppose that it sounded too harshly, but so as he thought it would run best in these words: Who praise their fathers but the generous sons? But Dionysodorus, the Troezenian, proves him to be wrong, and restores the true reading, which is thus: Who praises their fathers but degenerate sons? Telling us that the proverb is meant to stop the mouth of those who, having no merit of their own, take refuge in the virtues of their ancestors, and make their advantage of praising them. And we see this in various forms: the political party, or the candidate, or the celebrity, or whatever. But as Pindar hath it, he hath by nature doth inherit from ancestors a noble spirit, as you do, who made your life the copy of the fairest originals of your family. Such, I say, may take great satisfaction in being reminded, both by hearing others speak and speaking themselves, of the best of their progenitors, for they assume not the glory of praises earned by others out of any want of worth of their own, but affiliating their own deeds to those of their ancestors, give them honor as the authors both of their descent and manners. Therefore I have sent to you the life which I have written of your fellow citizen and forefather Aratus, to whom you were no discredit in point either of reputation or of authority, not as though you had not been the most diligently careful to inform yourselves from the beginning concerning his actions, but that your sons, Polycrates and Patroclus, both by hearing and reading, become familiar with those family examples which it behooves them to follow and imitate. It is a piece of self-love, and not of the love of virtue, to imagine one has already attained to what is best. The city of Sicyon, from the time that it first fell off from the pure and Doric aristocracy, its harmony being destroyed, and a mere series of seditions and personal contests of popular leaders ensuing, continued to be distempered and unsettled, changing from one tyrant to another, until Cleon being slain, Timocleidas and Cleinias, men of the most repute and power amongst the citizens, were chosen to the magistracy, and the commonwealth now seeming to be in a pretty settled condition, Timocleidas died, and Epentidas, the son of Passius, to possess himself of the tyranny, killed Cleinias, and of his kindred and friends, slew some and banished others. He sought also to kill a son, Aratus, whom he left behind him, being but 7 years old. This boy, in the general disorder, getting out of the house with those that fled, and wandering about the city, helpless and in great fear, by chance got undiscovered into the house of a woman who was Epentidas's sister, but married to Prophantus, the brother of Cleinias, her name being Sasso, she being of a generous temper, and believing the boy had by some supernatural guidance fled to her for shelter, hid him in the house, and at night sent him away to Argos. Aratus, being thus delivered and secured from this danger, conceived from the first and ever after nourished a vehement and burning hatred against tyrants, which strengthened with years, being therefore bred so amongst his father's acquaintance and friends, at Argos with a liberal education, and perceiving his body to promise good health and stature, he addicted himself to the exercises of the plastra to that degree that he competed in the 5 games, gained some crowns, and indeed in his statues one may observe a certain kind of athletic cast, and the sagacity and majesty of his countenance does not dissemble his full diet and the use of the hoe, whence it came to pass that he less studied eloquence than perhaps became a statesman, and yet he was more accomplished in speaking than many believe, judging by the commentaries which he left behind him, written carelessly and by the way as fast as he could do it, and in such words as first came to his mind. In the course of time, Dinius and Aristoteles, the logician, killed Abantidas, who used to be present in the marketplace at their discussions, and to make one in them, till they, taking the occasion, insensibly accustomed him to the practice, and so had opportunity to contrive and execute a plot against him. After him, Passius, the father of Abantidas, taking upon him the government, was assassinated by Nicocles, who himself set up for tyrant. Of him it is related that he was strikingly like Periander, the son of Capselus, just as it is said that Orontes, the Persian, bore a great resemblance to Alcmaeon, the son of Amphiaraus, and that Lacedaemonian youth, whom Marcellus relates to have been trodden to pieces by the crowd of those that came to see him upon that report to Hector. This Nicocles governed 4 months, in which, after he had done all kinds of mischief to the city, he very nearly let it fall into the hands of the Attalians. By this time Aratus, being grown a youth, was in much esteem, both for his noble birth and his spirit and disposition, which, while neither insignificant nor wanting in energy, were solid and tempered, with a steadiness of judgment beyond his years, for which reason the exiles had their eyes most upon him, nor did Nicocles less observe his motions, but secretly spied and watched him, not out of apprehension of any such considerable or utterly audacious attempt, but suspecting he held correspondence with the kings, who were his father's friends and acquaintances. And indeed Aratus first attempted this way, but finding that Antigonus, who had promised fair, neglected him and delayed the time, and that his hopes from Egypt and Ptolemy were long to wait for, he determined to cut off the tyrant by himself. And first he broke his mind to Aristomachus and Actelus, the one an exile of Sicyon, the other Actelus, an Arcadian of Megalopolis, a philosopher and a man of action, having been the familiar friend of Arcesilaus, the academic at Athens. These readily consenting, he communicated with the other exiles, whereof some few, being ashamed to seem to despair of success, engaged in the design, but most of them endeavored to divert him from his purpose, as one that for want of experience was too rash and daring, whilst he was consulting to seize upon some post in Sicyonia, from whence he might make a war upon the tyrant. There came to Argos a certain Sicyonian, newly escaped out of prison, brother to Xenocles, one of the exiles, who, being by him presented to Aratus, informed him that part of the wall over which he escaped was, inside, almost level with the ground, adjoining a rocky and elevated place, and that from the outside it might be scaled with ladders. Aratus, hearing this, dispatches away Xenocles with 2 of his own servants, Seuthas and Technon, to view the wall, resolving, if possible, secretly, with one risk, to hazard all on a single trial, rather than carry on a contest as a private man against a tyrant by long war and open force. Xenocles, therefore, with his companions returning, having taken the height of the wall and declaring the place not to be impossible or indeed difficult to get over, but that it was not easy to approach it, undiscovered by reason of some small but uncommonly savage and noisy dogs belonging to a gardener hard by, he immediately undertook the business. Now the preparation of arms gave no jealousy, because robberies and petty forays were at that time common everywhere between one set of people and another, and for the latters, Euphranor, the machine maker, made them openly, as his trade, rendering him unsuspected through one of the exiles. And see, that's the problem with, oh, I'm part of this group. It's like, well, there's problems with all the groups, right? At least on the people level, not necessarily the title or whatever that's gets the people in the group in the first place. Or that's not the way to put it, but you know what I mean. As for men, each of his friends in Argos furnished him with 10 apiece out of those few they had, and he armed 30 of his own servants and hired some few soldiers of Xenophilus, the chief of the robber captains, to whom it was given out that they were to march into the territory of Sicyon to seize the king's stud. Oh, is that what the Goetic entity is supposed to resemble? Is that chief of robbers? Most of them were sent before, in some parties, to the tower of Polygnotus, which orders to wait there. Giphysius also was dispatched beforehand, lightly armed with 4 others, who were, as soon as it was dark, to come to the gardener's house, pretending to be travelers, and procuring their lodging there, to shut up him and his dogs, for there was no other way to getting past, and for the ladders they had made to take in pieces, and were put into chests and sent before, hidden upon wagons. In the meantime, some of the spies of Nicolaus, appearing in Argos, and being sent to go privately about watching Aratus, he came early in the morning into the marketplace, showing himself openly and conversing with his friends. Then he anointed himself in the exercise ground, and taking with him thence some of the young men that used to drink and spend their time with him, he went home, and presently after several of his servants were seen about in the marketplace, one carrying garlands, another buying flambeaux, and a third speaking to the women that used to sing and play at banquets. All of which things the spies, observing, were deceived. They said, laughing to one another, certainly nothing could be more timorous than a tyrant, if Nicocles, being master of so great a city and so numerous a force, stands in fear of a youth that spends what he has to subsist upon in his banishment, in in pleasures and day debauches. And being thus imposed upon, they returned home. But Aratus, departing immediately after his morning meal, and coming to his soldiers at Polygnotus' tower, led them to Nemea, where he disclosed to most of them for the first time his true design, making them large promises and fair speeches, and march towards the city, giving for the word Apollo victorious, proportioning his march to the motion of the moon, so as to have the benefit of her light upon the way, and to be in the garden, which was close to the wall, just as she was setting. And if you're going to break up a word and put part of it in another bit, put it, you put that line here. Capheus came to him, who had not secured the dogs, which had run away before he could catch them, but had only made sure of the gardener.